tonight we will be unveiling the chilling and powerful tale of the man who's not such a myth, Nat Turner, and his rebellion. The man who shook the very foundation of slavery how we know it today. My sources will be coming from The Confessions of Nat Turner, a movie. Nope, not a movie, y'all. Scratch that, scratch that, scratch that. The Confessions of Nat Turner, written by Thomas R. Gray. These were his words. Nat Turner, A Troublesome Property. This was a 2003 movie. You can find that on Tubi. That's free to stream. Go ahead and watch that. And Virginia Museum of History also has an exhibit on it. Have I seen it? No. Will I try to go see it? Yes. But I also will be including a painting on A Road to Jerusalem. I'm not too sure who the artist is, but I will put that under the painting if I can find his name. But these are detailed intel things about this rebellion that many people did not know or did not understand. I personally lived in the town where it happened. I lived on a farm, behind the farm it happened on. So it was just knowing that I lived this close. I passed the signs every day driving. I learned to drive on the road that this happened on. And I started to wonder, do we belong out here? Am I supposed to be out here? How did we get here? How did we get from one point? Our people were just seen as property out here, and now we're citizens in this same city. So it sparked a lot of questions for me. Good word, questions. And then when I watched the film in 2016 and ended up meeting him at our prom, and he was mad cool, I'm like, it's the reason why we have mad cool people coming from this town, this county, but they don't stay here. They don't live here. They don't stay here. So it just intrigued more questions. So then when I started doing research, I found the answers I was looking for, the answers I wanted. So I wanted to share them with you guys. So I hope that all my signs, pictures of farms, pictures of plantations, viewer discretion is advised. I'm pretty sure some of this stuff, I'm not going to talk about how gruesome the killings got, but I'm sure some of this stuff was probably not what they were looking to get into that day. But anyway, I just want you guys to kick back, understand that your comments and things are very, very appreciated. I will be reading them. And if you have a story time you want me to do, or if you have not just a person, but a time in history you would like for me to do, please feel free to comment that. But without further ado, let's get on to the story time. He was a son of two enslaved parents. His father, Benjamin Turner, was also enslaved but freed to freedom when Nat was young. Keep this act in mind. I'm pretty sure is what led to his rebellion later on in life. It is in fact thought of rebellion may have been influenced by Nat's views of resistance. His mother, Nancy Turner, is believed to have been an African, which would have connected him directly to his African culture and traditions. Nancy reportedly instilled in him a strong sense of identity, telling Nat that he was destined for greatness and that he had been chosen by God for a special purpose. Now, I'm not sure how many of us have been told by our parents that we're destined for greatness or they see more in us than other people see. But he was seen to have seen visions of angels fighting against each other, black and white angels in a bloody war. And Nat was highly intelligent for his young age. He learned to read and write, an unusual skill for most enslaved persons in the American South, where literacy among enslaved was generally forbidden. Despite his skin color, he still took the initiative to further himself. According to his confessions, this intelligence and his ability to remember events from a very young age made his fellow enslaved people believe he was destined for something greater. They saw him as a prophet, even as a child, interpreting his intellectual gifts as a divine sign. It is important to note the influence of Nat's grandmother, Old Bridget, who played a significant role in his upbringing. Some sources suggest that she was a woman who had survived the Middle Passage. Though it is not definitely confirmed, her influence likely connected him to African American spiritual traditions, which may have informed his religious visions and prophecies. Nat was known to tell his prophecies of black and white angels in a bloody war. Nat's father, Benjamin Turner, managed to escape slavery, a fact that is often downplayed in traditional history books. This likely influenced Nat's thought on freedom and rebellion. While the details of Benjamin's escape are unclear, it is significant that Nat grew up in effect knowing his father had resisted slavery in most direct way possible, by running away. This could have shaped the views of resistance, proving that escape or rebellion were viable ways to seek freedom. But what followed behind this chilling and long childhood was a brutal fight for freedom. His followers were driven by faith and fury to prepare for their uprising. In the early months of 1831, an unnatural darkness crept across the sky. The sun once began to fade, shadowed by a creeping shadow. To some, it was celestial events, but to Nat Turner, it was a divine signal, an omen that the time to rebellion had come. Turner had long believed that he was chosen by God to lead his people to freedom. But this eclipse, this was no ordinary occurrence. The sky itself was sending him a message. The time was near. The heavens had spoken. As the eclipse reaches its peak, a chilling silence fills the air. Turner's heart is racing. The world feels heavy, like something unseen is moving just beyond the veil. A sense of dread and anticipation fills the atmosphere. To the enslaved, the eclipse felt more like just a natural workout. It was God's hand of darkening the world as a sign of that chains of oppression were about to be shattered. For Turner, this was confirmation. The blood would soon be spilled, but it would be righteous, ordained by a higher power. The sun began to reemerge, but the moments lingering leave an unsettling feeling in its wake. Turner's resolve is filled, his path now illuminated by divine purpose. The rebellion has no longer a dream. It had become a mission. On nights like this, where the air feels alive with whispers and the moon hangs low, an enslaved man named Nat Turner believed he saw the signs. Vision of blood, angels, and a war turned upside down had haunted him for years. They were omens, messages from the higher power, directing him to lead his people from bondage to freedom. On the night of August 21st, we strike. We move quietly, without hesitation. We have waited long enough, for our blood has stained this earth long enough. We must send a message that will never be forgotten. The others nod, their faces reflecting both fear and grim determination. Outside, the wind picks up, causing the trees to sway. Their candles are flickering, casting long shadows on the wall. The night was eerie, silent except for the sound of rebellion. Horse hooves, axes swinging, cries in the night. Joseph Travis had been a good, kind master, or so rumors had went. But in the system of slavery, no kindness could erase the chains or undo brutally that had done long governed the lives of enslaved people. Nat knew this, and he entered that home. He knew there would be no turning back now. The door creaks open, the sound eerie loud in the silence of night. Turner leads the group inside. Travis and his family lay vulnerable, unaware of the storm that is about to break suddenly. Chaos erupts. Screams pierce the air, but they are muffled, almost drowned out by the relentless blows. Blood spatters in the walls, and in a matter of moments, the first house is left in silence again, but not the same silence as before. The first strike had been made, but Nat knew this was only the beginning. As dawn approached, the band of rebels would grow, swelling nearly to 70 men, enslaved and free black men alike, all united by the common goal. They moved from house to house, farm to farm, leaving a trail of blood in their wake. The violence was shocking as it calculated. They spared no one. Nat was able to rally up around 70 plus followers to commit such heinous activities in the name of freedom. They went from plantation to plantation, killing around 60 white people, including women and children. But as quickly as this rebellion had started, it would soon come to a tragic end. The white militia would hunt them down, crushing an uprising and exalting brutal revenge. Yet, even though Turner fled into the woods hiding from capture, his spirit had already changed the course of history. Birds flew overhead, calling into the quiet morning, and the once peaceful county of Southampton is now marked by rebellion's fury. Here are a couple photos of what the plantations may have looked like back in the day. I can imagine it was a brutal situation, leaving kids. And Nat's rebellion was not only a nightmare, but a dream of freedom for others. The echo that the night still lingers in shadows, and a reminder that the price that was paid in blood for the dream of liberation. Turner's unusual position among the enslaved wasn't just a field hand. He held a unique position as an overseer among enslaved people on the plantation. Although this is typically portrayed as a position of power or collaboration, Turner used it to foster relationships with fellow enslaved people, organizing the subtle, spreading his ideas without raising suspicion. His role also as an overseer gave him mobility and trust that allowed him to plan the rebellion. His connection to African spirituality, while many history books emphasize that Nat Turner Christian beliefs, scholars argue that his religious visions could have been a synchronicity of African spiritual traditions and Christianity. His mother's African roots may have exposed him to elements of African religious beliefs, which often blended with the Christian practices of enslaved African Americans. This spiritual blend of African cosmology and Christian apocalyptic visions, would his religious leadership and help his followers. Nat Turner film, A Troublesome Property for Historical Reenactments, was what I used for a lot of my research. I also used the book called, not really too sure, can't find the name of the book, but the movie Troublesome, the rebellion had ended, but his mark was far from erased. Nat Turner insurrection lasted nearly 2 days, but in its wake, it left a county and a nation reeling from fear, rage, and retribution. The bloody dream of freedom was drowned in a tribal wave of retaliation. In the days following the rebellion, the countryside was consumed with panic. White militias roamed the land, bent on revenge. They slaughtered over 200 black men and women and children, some guilty but most innocent, casting a net of terror far wider than the rebellion itself. This to me was an act of white society flexing their power. Per usual. You did something to us, now we got to show you what we can do to you so you won't do it again. Out of 70 individuals who rebelled against, I learned that 19 were executed on spot while the other free slaves were sold and shipped off. Turner believed his rebellion would initiate the fires of freedom, but the dream quickly turned into a nightmare. The rebellion was swiftly crushed, and in the aftermath, the state exerted brutal punishment. Nat Turner's capture became the final capture of the bloody saga. They finally captured Turner in the woods where he had found his solace and now was to face judgment. But even in chains, he remained a symbol of resistance to the enslavers. He was a monster, an evil spirit that had purged. To others, he was a Marriott, while to sacrifice everything for freedom. Despite hiding for over 2 months, Turner was eventually caught on October 30th, 1831. Turner hid near the cesspool for 6 weeks until his discovery, conviction, and hanging in Jerusalem, Virginia, now known as Cortland, Virginia. This incident placed fear in many Southerners' hearts after the discovery, approximately 30 miles away from his original rebellion site in Southampton County. He had been hiding in various locations in the area, including woods and swamps. Turner was found by a local farmer named Benjamin Phillips while hiding in a hollowed-out tree. His capture marked the end of his efforts to invade the authorities after the rebellion was squashed. In the dead of the night, just weeks before his execution, Nat Turner sat in a dark cell, desolate jail cell, awaiting his invincible end. The air was thick with weight of his actions and terror he had unleashed upon Southampton County. Thomas R. Gray, the only man who had seen him alive in those final days, came to records with his confessions, the story of the man who, in his own words, was chosen by God to bring justice to enslaved. Thomas Gray recorded every word, his hands trembling with mixture of fear and intrigue in those moments. It seemed though as Turner wasn't just speaking of the past, but foretelling an internal battle between darkness and light. The visions that had driven him to rise up now echoed through the room like a chilling prophecy. Turner sat before me unshaken. He sat of his cause with a calmness that chilled me to my core. He believed that his actions were ordained by God, and even in the face of death, he showed me no remorse, only a quiet certainty that he had fulfilled his purpose. Thomas R. Gray asked if he regretted what he done. He looked at him with those calm, unwavering eyes and said, "Was Christ not crucified?" Nat Turner was hanged, just as the first frost of winter touched the earth. His body was mutilated, his flesh turned into relics by those who feared the power of his name. They hoped to emerge his legacy, but instead they planted seeds of something far greater. The Blackhead Soundpost, road in Cortland, Virginia, gained its name from this grim event that followed the aftermath of Nat Turner's Rebellion in 1831. After Turner was captured, tried on November 11th, 1831, his body was gruesomely mutilated as a form of public retribution, demonstrating another flex of white society. According to local lore, Nat Turner's severed head was placed on a post alongside the road as a warning to others, symbolizing the brutal consequences of the rebellion. In the act of displaying his head was intended to terrorize the local enslaved population and discourage future uprisings. I don't know about how many of y'all have broke a law, have done something you weren't supposed to do, but imagine your head on the street post because of what you did. Okay. I mean, I just had to include that in there. Not only did they take that man's head and hang it there, but they named a street after it. And the street was there, you guys. I can promise my entire childhood. I'm only 24, so my entire childhood, that street was still there. This happened all the way in 1830. Not saying I'm saying that's a problem. Okay. Back questions that followed Turner's Rebellion. The road name preserves this grim historical memory and remains a symbol of fear and violence that gripped the region in the aftermath of the uprising. Fear spread across the South, leading to the deaths of hundreds of Black people in retaliation, many of whom had nothing to do with this rebellion. This rebellion was an act of relation, but not only made laws stricter. Discuss how many times in your life you may. This is a chilling tale that isn't just about violence, it's about the lengths people will go for freedom. It's a story that haunts the history of America. His legacy has never been silenced. Nat Turner's uprising sent shockwaves through the South and the entire nation, striking fear into hearts of slaveholders and inspiring countless others who long for freedom. Though many view his actions as violent and extreme, it is essential to remember his rebellion was born from a despite cry of justice. In a world that refused to recognize the humanity of Black people, in the aftermath, laws became harsher and the brutal system of slavery grew more entrenched. But Nat Turner's story continued to inspire abolitionists and freedom fighters for generations to come. His bravery and conviction in the face of unimaginable oppression remind us of the lengths people will go to fight for liberation. But as we reflect on this chapter in history, it's important to remember that Nat Turner's rebellion was not just a story of violence, it was a story of resistance, of hope. A man who believed in the right to be free, even when the world around him denied him that right. His story forces us to ask questions about power, resistance, and justice. While we may never know the full depths of Turner's thoughts and emotions, his actions forever changed the course of history. Nat Turner is a chilling chapter in freedom, in the fight for freedom, where one man's divine vision sets one of terrifying and bloody struggle. But even in the darkest of tales, there is light. The desire for freedom is stronger than any fear. So, as we close today's story, I invite you to sit with the complexities of Nat Turner's rebellion. It was a pivotal moment in Black history, one that shaped the fight for freedom in America. Let's continue to honor those who resisted the fight and those who dreamed of a world where Black people would live free. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Black history. Until next time, remember our stories are the foundation of change. Nat Turner's Rebellion is a chilling chapter in the fight of freedom where one man's divine vision sets off a terrifying and bloody struggle. But even in the darkest of tales, there is light. The desire for freedom is stronger than any fear. Turner is often portrayed as a religious Zagalite in traditional education, but these omissions, his connections to African spirituality, his father's escape, and his unique role in among all the enslaved help and paint a fuller picture of a man driven not only by Christian visions, but also by cultural legacies of resistance and freedom. If you're curious to learn more, check out the Confessions of Nat Turner, a first-hand account of thoughts, Turner's, and actions. Or watch A Birth of a Nation, a modern retelling of his haunting story. Also, I watched A Troublesome Property where they taught me about, at one time, we were only considered property. We weren't even considered citizens. That's a whole story in itself, isn't it?